The horrific tragedy that befell Michael J. Fox today. At 65, Michael J. Fox found himself on the floor of his Manhattan apartment after another serious fall. Only moments earlier, the morning had seemed completely ordinary. Then suddenly, he was down. For a moment, Michael struggled to reach his phone. His body had once again reminded him of something he had spent more than 3 decades learning to live with. Parkinson's disease was still there. Michael had learned how to manage it. He had learned how to work around it, how to continue his career, and how to keep moving forward despite the uncertainty. But a fall like this was a reminder that no matter how much he had adapted, he could never completely escape the disease. To understand why this moment mattered, we have to go back to the beginning. Long before Parkinson's became part of his life, Michael J. Fox was simply a young Canadian with a dream. Born in Edmonton, Alberta in 1961, Michael was the fourth of 5 children. Because his father served in the Canadian Armed Forces, the family moved several times during his childhood. As a boy, Michael dreamed of becoming a professional hockey player, but that dream eventually changed. Instead, he discovered acting. Michael found that he had a natural ability to perform, make people laugh, and capture an audience's attention. What began almost by accident slowly became a serious ambition. At only 17, he made his professional television debut. Eventually, he left school and moved to Los Angeles to pursue acting. Hollywood was not easy. There were auditions, rejections, small roles, and moments when his future seemed uncertain. But Michael kept going. Then, in 1982, everything changed. He was cast as Alex P. Keaton on Family Ties. The character quickly became one of the most recognizable parts of the show, and Michael's performance turned him into one of television's biggest young stars. Awards followed. His popularity grew. And then came the role that would transform his career forever. Marty McFly. Back to the Future became a worldwide phenomenon, and Michael became an international movie star. The young Canadian actor, who had once struggled through auditions, was suddenly one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces. His career was flourishing. His personal life was growing. From the outside, his future seemed almost limitless. Then, at only 29 years old, everything changed. Michael noticed a tremor in his finger. At first, it might have seemed insignificant, but the symptom continued. Eventually, medical examinations revealed the truth. Michael had Parkinson's disease. For a young actor at the height of his career, the diagnosis was devastating. He was still working, he was still building his family, he was still planning his future. And suddenly, he was facing a progressive neurological disease. With no cure, Michael was not ready for the world to see what was happening. So he made a decision. He would hide it. For years, he continued working while secretly managing the symptoms. He adjusted his movements. He used medication. He found ways to keep his tremors from becoming obvious. To audiences, he was still the same energetic Michael J. Fox they had always known. But behind the cameras, every day required calculation. Would the medication work? Would the tremor appear? Would someone notice? Could he continue performing without revealing what was happening? The effort became exhausting, and hiding the disease did not make it disappear. The fear remained. The uncertainty remained. Eventually, Michael began turning to alcohol as a way to escape. What began as a form of relief became another serious problem. He was trying to control the disease, control his public image, and control his fear all at once. But eventually, the situation began affecting his family. In 1992, Michael reached a personal breaking point. After waking from a drunken stupor with his wife Tracy Pollan and their young child nearby, he was forced to see what his behavior was doing to the people he loved. The problem was no longer only Parkinson's. His attempt to escape the disease was also damaging his life. That realization became a turning point. Michael decided that he needed help. He attended Alcoholics Anonymous, sought professional support, and stopped drinking. But sobriety brought another challenge. Without alcohol, there was nowhere left to hide. Michael had to confront Parkinson's directly. Eventually, he made another difficult decision. He would stop hiding his diagnosis from the public. Michael began speaking openly about Parkinson's. The world could finally see the reality behind the Hollywood image, but he refused to become defined only by the disease. Instead, he decided to use his experience for something larger. He became an advocate for Parkinson's awareness and research. His personal struggle eventually led to the creation of the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which became an important part of his efforts to support Parkinson's research and improve the future for people living with the disease. The focus was no longer only on Michael. It was about millions of other people facing the same diagnosis. But his own physical challenges continued. Michael experienced medical problems, injuries, and serious falls. After surgery for a spinal tumor, he had to relearn how to walk. For someone who had once been known for his energy and physical performances, losing that independence was difficult. But the experience taught him something important. He could not always do everything alone. He needed help, and accepting help was not weakness. It was another form of courage. As the years passed, Michael became increasingly willing to show the reality of his life. There were good days. There were difficult days. There was humor. There was frustration. There were moments of independence and moments when he needed someone beside him. He stopped trying to convince everyone that he was fine. Instead, he learned to live honestly with the reality of his condition. Michael never defeated Parkinson's in the traditional Hollywood sense. There was no miracle cure. There was no final moment when the disease disappeared. Instead, he found another kind of victory. He continued living. He continued speaking. He continued supporting research. And he continued using his experience to help others. Parkinson's changed his definition of success. Success was no longer simply about movies, awards, or remaining in front of a camera. It became about continuing forward despite uncertainty. It became about family, acceptance, purpose, and helping people who were facing the same battle. Michael J. Fox's story is therefore not simply about a famous actor who developed Parkinson's. It is about what happens after life suddenly changes the future you thought you had. The young Canadian who once dreamed of hockey became one of Hollywood's biggest stars. The actor, who appeared almost unstoppable, eventually faced a disease that determination alone could not defeat. The man who once hid his symptoms eventually became an advocate who spoke openly about them. And the person who once tried to face everything alone eventually learned that accepting help could also be an act of strength. His story reminds us that we cannot always choose what happens to us. We cannot always control our health. We cannot always prevent loss. And we cannot always know what tomorrow will bring. but we can still choose what we do with the reality we are given. Michael did not choose Parkinson's disease, but he chose to keep moving forward. He chose to seek help. He chose his family. He chose honesty. And he chose to turn a devastating diagnosis into a mission that could help others. That may ultimately be his greatest legacy. Not that he never fell. He did. Not that he never struggled. He did. But every time life forced him to confront another limitation, he found another reason to continue. Michael J. Fox's story is not about a man who defeated Parkinson's. It is about a man who refused to let Parkinson's decide who he would become. He fell, he struggled, he needed help, but he kept moving forward. And sometimes, courage is not about standing perfectly. Sometimes, courage is simply finding a reason to rise again.